Hey guys, how you doing? It's lunchtime, and it's another great episode of Lunchtime Talk with Steve. Today we have a local author here with us. She's doing great things. Her book is selling all over the place, and we definitely want to get her on the show. You know how I am. I like to be the first to get people on the show. All right, so we have Ifonia Jean, and she's going to be coming right back with us in just a moment after we do the intro and a quick commercial break. Use this as your time to go ahead and share with your friends, your relatives, your favorite group, all that good stuff. We'll be back with you in just a second. If your car could talk, it would say call Curvin's Car Detailing Service. It's mobile and they can come to you no matter where you are in Broward County. Give Curvin a call, 954-549-8507, and tell him this. Let me tell you about CCTV RX. With over 30 years in the security industry here in South Florida, they have proven themselves to be the first choice when it comes to security professionals. So whether you're trying to secure your home or your business, there's no other choice. Give them a call today for a free estimate. 754-213-2820. All right, so we're back. All right, and we're gonna get with Ifonia in just a second. Before I do that, I just want to give one public service announcement. I normally don't give public service announcements in the beginning, but I've been getting this picture going around on Facebook and all different things with this craziness about the chandelier in front of the White House is a depiction of someone hanging there. Listen, people, it's crap. Don't share that picture. It makes everything else that you talk about sound stupid when they start to see stupid stuff like that. So that's my my public service announcement for the day. Please stop sharing that picture. It's not true. I've been to the White House before. I can show you the picture of the chandelier. It's not. It's just the chain holding the chandelier from the ceiling. Okay, stop sharing the foolishness. Now let's get down to serious business. All right. Here we are. So, Ifonia, it's Ifonia, right? I'm pronouncing it right, right?
Ifonia.
Ifonia. See? All right. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Hello, Facebook friends and family.
And tell us a little bit about yourself before we get we jump into the book. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Ifonia?
Well, let me just start off by saying that I am the daughter of Haitian immigrants. My parents migrated here to the United States in the early 80s. And I must say it was a leap of faith because they left their comfort zone to come to a foreign land that they had not known. And their story has inspired me in so many ways, realizing that I am privileged to be in a country where I'm afforded free education and opportunities. I decided long ago that I wanted to really take my education serious. So I got my bachelor's degree from Florida Atlantic University in journalism, and I also have a master's in business administration and media management. And I worked for the newspaper for about 8 years. I used to write a religion column, and the unique thing about that opportunity is that I wasn't writing about different religions. I had the opportunity to write about my personal experience and about my personal faith. And the column really gave me a platform in the community to encourage believers and unbelievers alike. And I got such great feedback from the column. Um, I think I was the only one in the newsroom that was receiving letters and email on a weekly basis. I mean, the outpour of love and support from the community um, helped me to realize that, I had a voice and that I should use it. So that prompted me to really take a desire that I had since I was a child serious. I always wanted to be an author because I was a bookworm. I read a lot of books growing up. And so having that platform in a newspaper gave me the courage to pursue that desire. And so when the opportunity presented itself in 2015, I took advantage. I had been attending these women conferences around the community. And there was one women's conference I attended in Sunrise at the BB&T Center. It's the Women of Faith Conference. I don't think they hold conferences anymore, but during that conference, I came across a bulletin about a writing contest that one of their sponsors was hosting. And that sponsor was Westbow Press Publishing. So I participated in the writing contest. I submitted a manuscript that I had written while taking a nonfiction workshop at Nova University. And I mean, I didn't win the contest, but I did get a free consultation and a discounted package with Westbow Press to publish a book. So I took advantage of that and I published Strength for the Journey in 2016.
Okay, so let's start with well, first let's go back to the newspaper that you were writing at. Okay,
Yeah.
so how did you get started with the newspaper? What made you say, I think I could write a column? How did that work?
Well, after I graduated with my undergrad, I applied for a position at Sun Sentinel, and I think the initially I applied for a reporter position. I didn't get that position, but they the hiring manager at the time had an opening for an editorial assistant position, and I wasn't too excited about that, but she told me that she really liked my resume. And this was during the time of the recession, so they were eliminating a lot of positions at the time and laying a lot of people off. So she suggested that I apply and interview for the editorial assistant position, and then later on I could apply for a reporter position if I was still interested. So I talked it over with my husband, and he was like, "Yeah, you should definitely take advantage of that opportunity. That'll get your foot in the door." So I did just that. And then within a year of working as an editorial assistant, um, one of my tasks was to write um, a weekly education column. And so when I was writing that column, my supervisor, or editor, I should say, at the time was like, you write these education columns very well, but I'm curious to know, what are you passionate about? I would love to see you write about something that you're passionate about. And I told her, well, I'm passionate about my faith. And she was like, okay, then maybe we can have you do a religion column instead. And so that's how that happened. And so at the time, I wasn't sure what a religion column was supposed to look like, but I told her, you call it a religion column, and I'm not an expert in every religion out there. I can only speak on my personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I can't speak on, what it means to be a Buddhist or, you
Mm-hmm.
know, Islamic and all of that. And so she was like, well, write about that, write about your personal relationship with Jesus. And so that's what I did. And that first week when my column got published, it received so much feedback. And my editor was like, you know what? I'm so happy that I talked you into doing this, because I have a feeling that your column is going to impact the community in such a great way. And that's pretty much what happened. I was getting all these letters and feedback from people, and I was being invited to speak at certain events. And so,
And that's a good thing. That's something right there, because even during a recession, when
yes,
the job that you wanted wasn't available or
yes,
wasn't available to you, God still opened up a way for you to do great things.
yes,
And it's crazy, because that's what, like, right now I tell people, yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot of stuff going on. People are losing their jobs, whatever, but there are opportunities available,
yes, yes,
and we just have to look at the opportunity and just believe that God's going to make it happen.
yes. I'm not sure if it was JFK. I know a former president once said that in a crisis, we must be aware of the danger, but take advantage of the opportunity, or something like that. And I think that is relevant for today or any day.
Mhm. Gary was asking, have you ever read the book Enoch that was taken out of the Bible? There are a few books that were taken out of the Bible, but have you ever read that book?
No, I have not.
All right, Gary. Well, as I told you before, everyone is encouraged to send questions and everything. Monique says, "What inspired you to choose the title Strength for the Journey?"
Hi, Monique. When I was submitting the manuscript for Strength of the Journey, I didn't have a working title in mind, and I just kept going back to all of the things that I had written about in the manuscript, and I was like, well, how do I sum up everything that I've written, and how do I make it relatable to the time that we're in? And this was in 2016, and so much was going on.
Mhm.
Similar to this year, there was the Zika outbreak, and it was an election year. There was the shooting of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, which was caught on camera. So there were racial tensions. And I think it was that year that 5 police officers were killed during a protest in Dallas. So there was
Mhm.
just so much going on. And I'm like, man, people are anxious. People are uncertain about the future. Um, they're concerned, and some people feel defeated because it was just one thing after another that year. And so and I came across a passage in the Bible where Paul was encouraging the church in he was encouraging the Ephesians, and in his letter he told them, I pray that you would be in in the strength of the Lord on your journey, or something along those lines. And then there was another passage where Paul pleaded with God to remove these thorns from his flesh. And God kept telling him, my grace is sufficient for you. And my power is made perfect in your weakness. And so just reflecting on everything that was going on in 2016 and those two passages, I thought about it. I was like, well, you know what? We're all on a life journey. And right now we need strength. And not just right now, but we'll always need strength. We'll never get to a point in our journey where we don't need strength. Obstacles are going to come and go. And so I figured, you know what? I'm going to call this book Strength for the Journey. And then the subtitle is Reflections of God's Power in Our Weaknesses. Because I wrote 52 chapters and I figured, okay, there's 52 weeks in a year. So that's how I came up with
each person, so you can read a chapter a week, then a person can read a chapter a week.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. So tell me about your journey then. I mean, we already heard about what happened before you, when you worked for the newspaper and things like that. But what's that journey been like being that author? I mean, the author, what made you decide, well, first off, how long did it take you to publish that? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I have a lot of people that are watching that have written books and have not published yet. A lot of people that have life stories that they should write as a book and haven't written it yet. So how long were you holding on to that before you decided to publish it?
I started writing it in 2013, and at the time I just kept, I would start a chapter and then I'm like, I'll work on this some other time. I just kept putting it off because I had other things going on and other responsibilities. But at the same time, there was this fear because I'm like, I don't want to, because even though I was courageous enough to share my personal life journey and my faith in the column, I just felt like, man, a book sounds even bigger than a column. If this can go, around the nations or around the world, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for people to read about my personal journeys because to me my words are some of the things I write, they're like pages in my diary. They're so personal. So there's this fear of putting all of that out there. But I think in 2016, well, towards the end of 2015, I just kept getting these signs. Like I would just come across these quotes or these passages, basically encouraging me, do that thing that God has put in your heart to do. And so when I lost my job in 2016, I was like, okay, I have more than enough time to put all of this together. So from January till November, I was writing, editing, doing all this stuff for the book. And I finally submitted the manuscript in November, and the book got published in December of 2016.
All right, and Gary was just commenting that being transparent is awesome. He actually has 2 books out, and he's been on the show before too. So that's one of the things that he was talking about because building up that courage to bear yourself and just put yourself out there. It takes a lot of courage. I'll tell you that. And for you to actually take the like you were saying, some of the pages of your diary and put out there for people to read. That also takes a lot. So tell us about one of the, just don't give us everything from the book. Can't give away the secret sauce, but tell us about one of the things in there that that was like a turning point or something in your life that would really make us feel like wow. Give us that wow moment that make us feel good. We need that right now. Society needs that right now.
Yeah. So, in 2008, a month after I got married, I found out that I was pregnant. And then later on, I it turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy where the pregnancy had to be removed, and they also had to remove my left fallopian tube because they had ruptured, and that was a tough journey for me.
Hmm.
And like I was just feeling all these different types of emotions. And I remember telling myself, man, I'm a defect. All these women are getting pregnant and um, carrying their babies full term and giving birth to healthy, bouncing babies. And here I am with one less fallopian tube. And the doctors are telling me, oh, you can still get pregnant. But, as time went on, I was not able to get pregnant. And I still haven't had children. But that journey really helped me to turn to God, because people are always looking for the right words to say, but if they can't relate, it's hard for them to encourage you.
Hmm.
And so I think and that same women's conference that I was speaking about earlier, when I went to that women's conference, there was an author there who shared her story about um, pregnancy loss. And at the end of her presentation, I'm not sure how many women were in attendance, but BB&T Center is a big venue. And
Yeah.
at
It's
the
like
end of
30,000, 40,000 seats in that venue.
yes, and all the seats were filled. So imagine after the presentation, she says, if any of you have experienced pregnancy loss, please stand up. And, I'm over here hesitating to stand up. And before I could decide whether or not to stand up, I look around and it seemed like 80% of the women in the
Wow.
auditorium were on their feet. And, and it was then that I realized, when you're going through an obstacle or a challenge in life, sometimes it feels like you're the only one in that situation. You're the only one going through it. And that's the lie that the enemy wants us to believe. Because if he can get you to believe that you're the only one going through pregnancy loss, then he can make you feel as if God cares about everyone except for you. So
Hmm.
that was a turning point for me, just seeing that I was not alone on my journey. And I realized that, man, if everyone shared um, a challenge or a difficulty that they faced, and if they shared how they got out of it, that would really encourage a lot of people and keep a lot of people from self-sabotage or even suicide. And when I was writing my column, I didn't realize it at the time, but that's basically what I was doing every week. Every time I wrote a column about rejection, or trying to figure out what your purpose is in life, or trying to figure out how you're going to pay this bill, or how to figure out how to care for that sick person in your family, or whatever the topic was that I was tackling. Every time I wrote on that topic and related it to a story in the Bible, I was encouraging people with that. And so when I was writing my book, I was like, I never really tell anyone about what I've gone through as it pertains to pregnancy loss. I talk about everything else, job loss or trying to figure out your purpose, but I never addressed that particular issue. And so the book really gave me an opportunity to be vulnerable about that. And so I do share something about that in the book, where I basically remind people that you are more than enough. You are not your job title. You are not your validation is not tied to being a wife or being a mother. That
Right.
status, your relationship status with God does not change just because um, a season in your life has changed, so to speak. So
So
yeah.
basically, so
Mhm.
basically, we're looking at 52 different stories similar to this one, or not to that extent, but
Not
52
to that.
different stories about your life.
Yes, 52 chapters that addresses something that I experienced in my personal life and how I got
So,
through it.
so when we're done reading this book, we're gonna know everything there is to know about Ifonia.
Yeah. Well, you're. I don't want to say everything, but you'll know a lot of things for sure. You know that, and you'll know a whole lot about Jesus too.
There you go. See, and that's the thing. We gotta be. And I like one thing that you were saying. I like a lot of what you were saying, but one thing that you're saying too is that relationship with God and that relationship with Jesus Christ, because we have to realize that um that relationship isn't based on the person that you see on the pulpit on Saturday or Sunday, depending on what your faith is. It's not based on the person that reads the Bible to you or tries to explain it to you. We have to get in that personal space and that
Oh,
quiet time and listen to God. And because one of the things that anyone that knows me knows I'm a talker. I say a lot to a lot of people, and I always talk a lot. Maybe sometimes too much. I don't know. Ask Monique; she'll tell you. But it's like we have to remember that God is a parent, just like Of course, He's more than an earthly parent, but if our kid only called us every time that they needed something, then we'd be like, oh gosh, it's him again, it's her again.
yeah, yeah,
We have to be thankful and call and speak to God every time, whether it's going good, whether it's not. We have to talk to him every single time. We also have to sit down and listen to what he's telling us, and then when he says something, we have to obey. We can't just, oh well, I really want to do it this way. No, he's telling you to do it that way. But no, but I want to. No, that doesn't work. So
yeah.
so that's what I like what you were saying about getting that quiet time and about getting to know Jesus Christ. And I really think that that's the key to it. That's one of the keys to life. You know.
Absolutely.
So where's your book available? Where can people purchase your book?
My book is available on westbowpress.com, and it's also available on barnesandnobles.com and amazon.com.
All right, and I'm gonna make sure I put a link to it on my site as well. Give me just a moment, and I'll be right back with you. I just gotta run a quick commercial break. I gotta pay for the
Sure.
commercial time, pay for the time. All
Okay.
right, 1 second, okay? Let me tell you about CCTV RX. With over 30 years in the security industry here in South Florida, they have proven themselves to be the first choice when it comes to security professionals. So whether you're trying to secure your home or your business, there's no other choice. Give them a call today for a free estimate. 754-213-2820. If your car could talk, it would say call Curvin's Car Detailing Service. It's mobile and they can come to you no matter where you are in Broward County. Give Curvin a call, 954-549-8507, and tell him that Steve sent you. All right, so we are back, and we're here with Ifonia Jean, and she's talking to us about her book, and we're actually learning a lot about her life. And now we're going to get into the second part of it, which is learning a lot about the the relationship with Jesus Christ. We're not going to say her personal relationship because everyone has their own relationship. And so, talk to me about how you first started that walk with Christ.
Well, growing up, I was raised in a church. My mom was one of those parents who had us, me and my siblings, in church Monday through Friday. And so, but at the time, I guess because I was young, I didn't really get much out of it. And this was a Haitian church, and Creole is my second language. And so, I understood what they were talking about, especially at Sunday school, but I would say it wasn't until I was in high school, probably my freshman or sophomore year, that is when I started to take my walk serious. And I even got baptized at 15. And I just wanted to get to know God for myself. And, there was so much going on in high school, such as peer pressure, insecurities, low self-esteem, boys, just so much going on that year, and just trying to figure out, what am I going to do after high school? What is my purpose in life? I knew my parents wanted me to go into medicine or law, and I had always said, okay, I'm gonna I'm going to be a pediatrician, but I didn't feel excited about going into medicine. So my high school year, because of everything that I was experiencing and going through, and because I also had friends who had a real personal and unique relationship with God, I kind of gleaned from them as far as like learning how to speak to God, how to approach God, and how to understand the word. And I just threw myself into, church
Mhm.
and reading and prayer and all of that during my time in high school. And it just continued on to college and into my adult life. But yeah, I would say that personal walk began in high school because there was just so much going on. And I remember there was a time where I just kept getting sick, and my parents took me to all these doctors, and no one could figure out like what was wrong. And I remember I went to see a specialist, and he examined me, asked me some questions, and he was like, you know what? You're not sick. There's nothing wrong with you. But I will say that what I think is going on here is you're depressed. And at the time, the word depression had a negative connotation to it. So I wasn't trying to claim that. I was like, nope, you're wrong. I'm not depressed. I remember he gave me some antidepressants to take, and I didn't care to take it because when I would see commercials on television about these antidepressants, there was always these disclaimers. This may lead to suicide and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, I'm not taking these pills. But now when I look back, I'm thinking about it. I was like, I think I was depressed because I was so down and so insecure during my years in high school, and I was afraid that something bad was going to happen to me because bad things were happening to my peers or my friends. And so that just made me like desperate to hear from God, to just to kind of understand, like, okay, where are you leading me? What do you want me to do? What's going on in my life? And also I wanted to feel better because I was tired of, not being able to sleep, or not having an appetite, and having to visit all these different doctors to find out what was going on. So I think, whatever was going on that year, that turned me to God, and I clung to him for dear life because I was so. So I would say, yeah, that's when I established this relationship with God.
And another thing too, which I thought you were probably going to mention, but you didn't. Um, Not only was depression, not only did it have a negative connotation back then, but with West Indians, I mean, I'm from Barbados, and I'll tell you, with West Indians, it's like depression. What, are you crazy? You're not crazy. You don't need it.
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
and they take it to another level.
uh-huh. That's like even my parents were like, what does he mean you're depressed? What does that mean? Like now we have such an awareness of mental health
Hmm.
because we have access to more information, and so we're able to self-educate ourselves, and we're hearing like influential people talk about their personal experiences with depression, so we have a better understanding of it. That's why I'm able to look back and say, you know what, I was depressed. I was in denial about it then because no one was talking about it, and it didn't sound like a cool thing to say out loud that, hey, I'm depressed. But
Hmm.
looking back, I was like, considering everything that was going on in my personal life and at school, it made sense. And so, but nevertheless, I think it was a good thing that I went through that because, like, as I mentioned, that
It brought
led
you closer to God. Yeah, and um
I
and and I also want to. And also, one of the things too is, on my website, lunchtimetalkwithsteve.com, there's a section that says "Get Help," and people can go there. I mean, it has links to suicide prevention, to Feed in America for people that need to get food, 211, so they can do so many different programs, and these programs are available all over the country. So I just want to mention that in there for anyone that's listening that feels that they may be depressed, and or that feels that depression is it's not for them, or whatever. Get
Right.
help, because
Yes.
we don't want to see, and it does take a toll on your body,
Yes.
because your mind controls your entire body, everything from your adrenaline to whatever, and it's gonna play a part on in the overall well-being. So anyone that feels they need to get help, or anything like that, these all those sources are totally confidential. You just go to my website, click on it, and it takes you right out to their link. It has nothing to do with Steve or anyone else. Those are the professionals that can help you. Get out there and get that help.
Right.
So tell me a little bit more about the book. I want to hear. Actually, is there going to be another part to the book too? That's another thing. Are you thinking about a part two?
Well, not necessarily a part two, but I am thinking about writing a second book. Um, well, not thinking about it. I have started, but I'm finding myself in that pattern again where I'm procrastinating and second guessing, second guessing myself. But
Hmm.
now that we're having this conversation, I'm like thinking, you know what? I need to get on that. But yeah, I think it will feel like a part two in terms of what I plan on writing about. But instead of it being like a devotional style type book, I think it'll just address one particular topic. Um, and then, of course, I'm going to relate everything back to the Bible.
Hmm. And you're still young. You got a whole lot more to talk about. What are you, 19? No, I'm just joking.
Yes, I am 19. No, just playing.
my
Um,
mom, my mom always tell everybody she's 25. It's like no matter when her birthday, no matter what, she's always 25. I'm like, how
oh
could my
God,
mother be half my age?
so your mother is like me. I do this. 25 was such a great year for me. So I always tell people I'm 25, or I'm celebrating the anniversary of my 25th birthday.
So then that means you have a whole lot more to write about, because
Yeah,
I mean, if your book you said was from back in 2016, correct?
correct.
And I'm sure there's a lot that happened in your life since then. So we got to hear some of those
Yeah,
things
true.
in the next book.
Yeah, true. But
Or maybe,
even
huh?
though a lot has happened in my life since I published the book, I will say that just seeing everything that's going on now, my book is still relatable to 2020 because, as I mentioned earlier, everything that was going on in 2016, we
Hmm.
have a lot of that going on today. The racial tensions, the fact that it's an election year. Um, we have a pandemic. There was the Zika outbreak in 2016, but it wasn't to this extent. but
Right. Yeah. And then
so
we
yeah,
have the Ebola before that, and the
yeah,
thing is to really, we find that history just keeps repeating itself, and we could go back to Marvin Gaye, or we could go back to Bob Marley, or we could go back to any of these other people, Nina Simone, and it's like everything that they sang about back in those days, they're still relevant today. And
yes.
that's what's so crazy about it. It's like wow, almost like you could take a person from 1970 and drop them in 2020, and the only thing that changed was the cell phone and the flat screen TV. I
Exactly. The
mean,
only thing that really changes technology, but everything, the struggle is still the same and it's very much real. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we will never get to a point in our journey where we don't need the strength of God to carry on. So,
mhm. Monique was just mentioning that July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. I
oh,
didn't know there was such a
I
thing, but
know that. Yeah, I know that national mental health awareness, but not minority. That's interesting. And July is my birth month. So,
and see, that's one thing you could always count on Monique to tell you, to give you information. I don't know where she gets this stuff from, but it's like, if you
she's
want to know, you call her up and boom, she tells you, she knows it.
a researcher and a networker. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
she's awesome.
yeah.
Don't tell her I said that though. It'll go straight to her head. Oh, she start to think she's all that. No. And Tamara's also mentioning your brain is if your brain is not functional well, the rest of your body malfunctions also, mind,
Right.
body, and spirit. And that's
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 true.
something that we really have to look into because a lot of times we don't realize the issues. I do a lot of work with nonprofits and with one of them is a school called AMI Kids,
Right.
and we do a lot of work there with the children, and these are kids that came out of juvenile detention center, and now they're in school and before they transition to the back into regular school, or even a lot of them choose to stay in the school at
Right.
AMI. But the thing is, we don't realize the PTSD that some of these kids are going through. We don't realize the stress, the
Right.
trauma, the depression.
Mhm.
And we always say, oh, they're kids, they'll get over it, but they won't. A lot of them don't get over it like that. So we really have to make sure that not just as adults, we have to make sure that we're sheltering our children as well, because if we're going through a lot of this and we're adults, we should know how to deal with it. What
Right.
happens with that 10-year-old, that 12-year-old that don't know how to deal with it? And then, like in your case, you had God to turn to. What about the one that don't, and instead they turn into the guy on the corner, turn into their friends, or turn into whoever? you know
Yep,
there's a
that's
lot.
true. A lot of times we think PTSD is just a term used in the military, but PTSD can affect anyone because we're
Yeah.
all going to experience some form of trauma. Like, I hate to keep going back, but when I was going through, that dark period in my life, when I was in high school, a lot of what I was feeling was a result of what was going on at home with what my parents had going on. They didn't realize it then, but their stress was directly impacting me. and
Yes.
um and so, yeah, so I think it's very important for parents to be mindful of you know the things they speak,
Hmm.
the things they say to each other and to their children, or the type of attitudes and behaviors they project onto their children, because that can affect a child's mental state up until adulthood. Thankfully, I did have God to turn to. Now I would advise someone, turn to God, but get therapy as well. At the
Right.
time, I was in denial about depression, and so were my parents. So no one was going to have me see a therapist or have me on pills, even though we picked up the prescription. But I was like, I'm not taking those.
Hmm.
Um, but by the grace of God, when I turned to Him, um, I was strengthened in my spirit, and that permeated my mental and physical being. But today, I would tell people, go see that therapist if you have to, and if you have to take medication, do that as well. But keep Jesus at the center of it all.
Exactly. Back to even like with kids and with parents, what we also find that happens a lot and in society is, even especially with divorced parents or separated parents or whatever, that child is sitting there hearing you talk to your best friend about his or her dad. He's a dog, he's this, he's a this, and he calling him the worst things in the world. And then 5 minutes later, you turn around and tell that kid, you're just like your dad. So
Mhm.
wait a second. So that makes me that dog and and all these bad things that you were saying. Because if I'm just like him, and that's what you were telling your best friend, and we don't realize how it impacts these kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then another thing I did with some kids before, I heard this on NPR, and it made me really started to think. This lady was in Liberty City, and she went through, oh gosh, I don't remember what school it was. It was an elementary school, and these were fifth graders that she was talking to, and she asked them, how many of you have had one person that you know directly that died from an unnatural cause? So they died from either guns or knives or whatever.
Mhm.
Almost every hand went up. How many know two? A lot of hands went up. Three. Most of those kids in the fifth grade knew three people that died, and most of them were their age that died from being shot in the park, stabbed. What? So many different things, and then we realized, but they're not getting the services they need. So I started doing that when I started talking to kids at school, at different schools, and I'll ask them those questions. And next time you're talking to a group of kids, ask them that question, and you'll be surprised. And then ask them, have you ever had any kind of therapy for that? No. So what do you think happens for our kids when And I don't mean to go off on the left like that, but what happens to our to these kids when they have these traumas and nothing ever happens? No
Right.
one takes them to so I think that that definitely what you're saying is a good thing. People need to start looking into it. Parents need to look into it. Look into the therapy, look into that relationship with God, look into so much because I mean, if we don't do it, things, I always say, things are going to change one way or another, for the better or for the worse. It
Yeah.
just depends on what you do. If you do nothing, it'll get worse. If you do something, it'll get better. We have to do it.
Right.
So, what you mentioned your church, and if you don't mind, I mean, maybe you could get some people over to your church. What church do you go to?
Well,
No stalkers, though. We don't want any stalkers over there for your phone, okay?
I currently attend Calvary Chapel. I've been going there for a few years now, but I will say, when I was, when I established that personal relationship with God, and I was looking to be filled with um, the word, and I was looking to be encouraged and all of that. I started attending the Faith Center, and I was there for like over a decade. So, but yeah,
So
I
you like
currently
the mega churches?
I guess growing up in a very small Baptist church,
uh
I felt
where
that
every,
God in
where
my horizon.
everybody knew your business and everything. You didn't like that one, huh?
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Yeah, because
yeah,
Calvary is actually pretty good. Well, they're both good churches, both the ones
yeah,
that you mentioned.
yeah,
So those are just really big churches, but
right.
So tell me a little bit more about the book. Let's get back to the book again. Um, I really want people to go out there and buy this book. I really want you guys to read it. I want you to find out, about the journey and how everything came about. So, what is the one thing you would say to people that would make them want to go out there and buy this book? What is the thing that it's like the secret sauce, the hot topic, the one thing in there that you say, I gotta get this out. I gotta let people know about
Hmm. Well,
it. Putting you on the spot here, huh?
much pressure. Well, I will say this. God has placed His Spirit in each one of His children, and if you're a believer, you are His child, and His Spirit is at work within you. But you won't realize that His Spirit is at work within you if you're not, soaking in His presence, if you're not seeking His face, if you're not depending on Him for everything. Some people like to invite God into their lives when they have major things going on, but God is in the details as well. So, um, I'm so I would say, you should purchase this book if you feel stuck, if you feel defeated, if you feel that you're alone in whatever obstacle or challenge you're facing currently, and if you desire to understand the Bible and see it from a different perspective, because a lot of people view the Bible as some historical artifact, like the Bible is not relatable to our current times, because we're in the information and digital age, and so people think
Mm.
the Bible is too archaic for it to be a compass to our current lives. But I think if you read Strength for the Journey, it might plant a seed within you where you hunger and thirst after the Word of God, and where you become curious enough to read the Word of God and understand like what these different stories in the Bible mean and how it relates to your life. Because we may not have to face a physical giant like David did, or we may not be thrown into a pit of lions like Daniel was, but
Mhm.
we're going to face um, giants in the figuratively speaking, and we're going to be
Yeah.
thrown in the pits of lions, figuratively speaking.
Yeah, it
Basically,
could
we're
be your job, could be anything.
exactly. We're going to find ourselves in situations where we feel afraid or alone or whatever the case is. And, it's going to take the power of the Holy Spirit for us to get through whatever that experience is. So I would say that if you are not someone who's ever cared about the Bible, or if you're someone who feel that you're alone in whatever you're going through, you should definitely pick up a copy of Strength for the Journey.
All right, and give us a scripture that we can go out on here. Let's what's one of your favorite scriptures?
Okay, I have so many, but I'll give two. So one of my favorite scripture is well, both of them are in the book of Psalms. Psalm 37, verse 4 says, "Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." And then also another one I have, I wrote it down, which is funny because I didn't know you were going to ask me that, but Psalms 18, verse 34. Psalms 18, verse 32 says, "God arms me with strength, and he makes my way perfect."
I like that. I like that. All right. Thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And we're gonna put the link on our website for the book Strength for the Journey, and we definitely want you guys to go out there and get a copy of it. All right. It's gonna be something that sometimes what we need is we need to hear other people's stories in order to realize what we're going through and how, and we're going to get through it, and just give us that strength. So this is a great way for us to get that strength that we need to go through what we're going through right now. All right, so go ahead and guys, get your copy of the book. You'll find it on Lunchtime Talk with Steve in just a few minutes, and then you could just click and get it delivered. It can't be easier than that. All right.
Now,
um,
quarantine, so you have a lot of time on your hands.
exactly. You got time to read it. um, Sharon was saying her favorite scripture is, "There I go, but for the grace of God."
Amen.
See, there you go. I'm telling you. So, Ifonia, thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate it. I welcome you to come back anytime, and we'll definitely talk about that second book, because I know there's going to be a second book. There has to be one. And now with the quarantine, this gives you a lot of material to talk about.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for having me, Steve, and thank you, Facebook family and friends, for joining.
All
Have a
right,
blessed.
thanks. You have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So, I mean, as always, we try to bring you the best of the best of the best, and we didn't fail you this time. We brought, her stories in the book are awesome. You're gonna have to go out and pick up a copy. Just actually go to Lunchtime Talk with Steve, and you can click on it and get your copy from there. There's a lot that you guys will learn from the book. All right, one of them, like Ifonia said, that walk with Jesus Christ, that walk with God is like, you have to do it for yourself. You have to go out there. You have to you have to get to know God. Don't just listen to what the pastor tell you, or this person, or the other person that comes along and said they're an evangelist or whatever. Listen, God doesn't really need to go through all them people to talk to you. He talks to you directly. You just need to listen, and you just need to just talk to him. All right. I don't want to sound like a preacher or anything like that here, unless we're going to pass a collection plate, cash at me the money. I don't know how you guys want to do it, but but anyhow, as always, it's time for me to head back to work, just in case my boss is watching. Um, but guys, definitely go out to the lunchtimetalkwithsteve.com website. Click on get help if you need help, whether it's depression, you need help with food, you need help with your rent, your light, whatever. All those resources are right there, and these are national resources. So anywhere in the United States that you live, you could just click on it, put your zip code, and it will tell you exactly where to call or how to reach out to these different organizations. Don't be shy, don't be bashful, don't be prideful. This is not the time for pride, all right? I mean, you need help, ask for it. Earlier today, as a matter of fact, and I'm looking for it right now as I speak. Earlier today, there was another person that gave me some information. It was about there it is. Yes, there were some people that gave me some information earlier about if you need help with your rent. And if you're in Miami-Dade County, down in Miami area, and you need help with your rent, they have a rental assistant program, which is area code 305-723-1815. Again, it's area code 305-723-1815. I'm going to put that out on the Lunchtime Talk with Steve website as well, so you guys can use that if you need to. Again, this is not the time to be shy and bashful. If you need help, get help. All right. Anyhow, guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. All right. If there's a food line out there, and we know there are a lot of them. Oh, that's the other thing too. People are thinking I'm saying Food Lion. Like, no, not Food Lion, because Food Lion is a grocery store in the Carolinas. No, I'm not saying Food Lion. I'm saying Food Line, like a bread line, like, where you go if you want to get free food from Feed America or Farm Share, any one of those places. There's a lot of them out there. And again, you can see the link right on lunchtimetalkwithsteve.com. So if you need to go to one of those places to get free food, definitely reach out to go to lunchtimetalkwithsteve.com, click on it, and go out there and get something to eat. Feed your family. Take your friends if you need. If you have a friend or someone that doesn't have a vehicle, take them out there with you. All right. Again, guys, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Do a random act of kindness for a stranger. Okay. Peace, people. La